Hello again. Another traditional style knife. This is the Rough Rider camp knife. Now, this is another one of those knives where I've kind of got a love-hate relationship with it. I mean, I absolutely love the look of the thing. I love the features, but the quality is definitely not there. Mind you, this is a knife made in China, but because it's made in China, it's cheap. It doesn't mean it's not going to work. This knife will not fall apart on you, and I'm pretty sure of that. And it's definitely a sturdily built knife. I mean, nothing is loose on the thing. It's a tight knife, and it's definitely built to last, even though it's made in China. I don't know. I think I picked this knife up for about £17 off Heine Haynes, and it's still about that price today. So that's not too bad. Now then, what do we have here? Well, let's have a closer look at the knife. So there you see the Rough Rider logo, the Rough Rider shield even. I don't remember if it was this knife or the other Rough Rider I have, which is a cotton sampler, but in one of these knives, I think it was one of my Rough Riders, the shield fell out. So that's not very good, but I glued it back in. Can't remember if it was this knife or another one, but that's of worthy note anyway. We have here a pinned construction, just like the case knives, which is great. I love a pinned construction. It's a fairly beefy knife considering it's only got 4 functions. Well, 4 tools anyway. I think this is bone handle. I'm not sure if it's real bone or if it's just some sort of plastic, and I don't have the first clue what animal it came off of. I mean, this knife is made in China, so it could be made of anything. And for some reason, the Rough Rider knives, when you buy them, it says on the box something about there's chemicals used to make this knife known to the state of California to cause birth defects. I always find that kind of funny because known to the state of California, does that mean if you go somewhere else it doesn't have birth defects? I mean, if you go to another state, I don't know, Texas, does it not give you birth defects in Texas? Or if you come here to the UK, do you not get the birth defects? Who knows? Anyway, that's something I always find kind of amusing. Anyway, like most other traditional knives, like I said, we do have the bone handle, the brass rivets. Is it brass? I think so. The nickel silver bolsters with the, I think this is called fluting. I'm not sure. I'm still learning the traditional knife terminology. Of course, we've got the back springs, which are separated. So the springs themselves are made of steel, and the spacers are made from brass. Now, as you see here in the corner, this is part of the reason why I've got a love-hate relationship with this thing. This is not all that well made. That is clearly a problem with the aesthetics. Whoever made this knife obviously didn't care. Mind you, I'm not surprised. It's made in China. Why would you care? They're probably putting out millions of these things. There's a lot of spaces between the springs and the spacers and the scales, which isn't much of a pretty sight. We do have a bail. That's one thing I do love about this knife and other traditional knives, is I do like to have a bail on knives. So, the more important parts, what functions does this thing have? Well, to start off with, we have a highly polished spear point main blade with the Rough Rider logo for the tank stamp, and all the functions on this knife have that horseshoe there. We have I believe this is called a match strike nail nick, from what I've heard on other channels. The blade is reasonably thick, that's a good thing. And it does come sharp enough. I mean, it says 440 razor sharp steel. That kind of annoys me, the fact that it says razor sharp steel, because the steel is as sharp as you make it, really. I mean, if you don't sharpen it, it's not going to be sharp. If you sharpen it, it's going to be sharp. You know what I mean? Anyway, we have China stamped onto the blade, which is something I absolutely hate. Now, the snap on this is, as you could see and hopefully hear, pretty much non-existent. I mean, there's next to no snap on this at all. So 1 to 10, the snap is 1. That said, it's sturdy enough. I do feel like I could use it safely without it closing. Well, there's a bit of a snap, I suppose, when I close it. Now, that's where the good things pretty much end. I mean, this is a nail breaker of a knife, which is the reason, another reason I've got a love-hate relationship with this thing. Now here I have an awl, which usually is a nail breaker, but I've managed to loosen it off just by continuously opening and closing the thing and continuously oiling it. This here is the awl for punching holes in wood and leather, but this awl came to such a fine tip, if my camera would focus, which it doesn't want to. How irritating. Well, anyway, there we go. You can see that it snapped off pretty much the first time I used it, because it was extremely pointy and, well, snapped off. Now don't get me wrong, this is still functional. It is just annoying that it snapped the first time I used it. I mean, I'll show you here, it is definitely still very functional. Whoops. That's why I'd rather hold a knife like this, you see, just in case it does fold. But if you're careful, it shouldn't. Now it might be worth mentioning that this is also sharp along here, so you really do not want that closing on your fingers. As I said, it is still functional. I'd imagine most of them the tip will snap off with, so be prepared to have a snapped tip if you do buy this, or regrind it. I see no point in sending it back and no point in regrinding it, because it's functional, and this knife is a cheap knife. I mean, I paid £17 for it. So let's look at the other features. Here we have a very sort of old style can opener. The way I use this, because I have used this a few times, is I literally just push it into the can and just sort of pry my way around the can. So it does work. Of course, it takes longer than modern can openers, and the can opener on a Swiss Army knife is far superior to this, but this you could use as a secondary blade because it is sharpened, and you would sharpen that the exact same way as a knife, and it can be one-handed opening. And the last tool, which I absolutely hate because it really is the nail breaker, is this. Yeah, I thought so. I'm going to need to use a Swiss Army knife to open that. So, of course, I have my trusty Victorinox Farmer here to hand to get that screwdriver cap lifter open, which again, mirror polished with the tang stamp. Now that's one of the biggest problems with this knife, is you need another tool to open some of the implements, which renders it almost useless. I mean, sometimes I could open it maybe 3, 4, 5 times. I can get that bottle opener opened without breaking my nail, but after that it starts to break my nail. What's the point of carrying it? But for £17, this is definitely a good option. Now, if you wanted something like this of a higher quality, maybe something made by W.R. Case and Sons, well, you're going to be paying about £100, because for a very similar pattern to this, but with a more modern can opener, you're looking at £100. So if you want an old style camp knife, I think this design goes back to maybe the 1920s or something. This is a sort of Boy Scout camping type pattern of knife. But for one of these made by Case, you're looking at £100. But of course, the quality is going to be 10 times better. In fact, I've just did a video on this Case Stockman. Unfortunately, I don't have a Case camp knife, although I would like one. Can't afford one at the moment. I'm just going to quickly compare the quality of the two. So here, you can see it's not very polished. There's lots of gaps. It's not the prettiest of things compared to this. You can see the fit and finish is so much better. It's nicely mirror polished with like the rest of the knife. Do a quick side by side here. I'm pretty sure most of us can agree that the case looks a lot prettier, but this knife was £60. For a knife like this, a medium stockman, made by Rough Rider, you're looking at maybe £10. And of course this one is handmade in the USA, so I suppose it's the case of pick your poison. Do you want a good quality knife that looks absolutely beautiful, that will stand up to the test of time, that costs, well, a lot of money? Or do you want something cheap that will get the job done? It might be a bit difficult to use, you might not enjoy it as much, but at least you're not going to break the bank. Well, like I said, pick your poison. Anyway, that pretty much concludes my video on this Rough Rider camp knife. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching.